Hi, welcome back to class, and this week we are moving on to education and religion, and what we're going to do this week is listen to a podcast and watch an interview and an address at a graduation. So it's a very good speech from Dr. Hill Collins, and we'll move on through the text with a test, another quiz on chapter 12. And so this week, we're going to investigate the institutions of education and religion. And we're going to listen to some podcasts that both get into inequality. So we're going to, the podcast actually we're going to listen to is about educational inequality. Then we're going to watch a speech from Dr. Collins and an interview with Reverend Barber about social justice and how this intersects with politics and religion. So this week we are going to start responding to the Chapter 11 discussion threads. And everybody gets the idea now that you're going to have a total of 6 responses because there's 2 different threads. You're going to read Chapter 12. We have a podcast you're going to listen to. So I want you to pay attention with this because there's questions associated with it. And then there's 2 interviews. There was one interview with Dr. Barber and a graduation address with Dr. Hill Collins. And so with this, you're going to post, again, 2 original discussion posts. And, again, don't start responding until next week on those. And, of course, we have a quiz with this week. And so I'll just walk you through what we're doing here because a podcast is different than what you normally have in this class. So what you're going to do is you're going to click on this link. For Carlos doesn't remember, it's a podcast with Malcolm Gladwell. And what you do is you're going to find the episode here. You click on it and hit the play button. And your podcast will begin. And so this is an interesting podcast. It gets into educational inequality. So they interview a student who's a high school student, and it's about all the steps that they have to take to give him the same opportunities that people with more means usually have. And this hits some interesting concepts. So Malcolm Gladwell is an author, but he's also a very good social thinker. He's a big thinker. And I know when you listen to the interview with Dr. Hill Collins and Smita Radhakrishnan, they spoke about relying on other areas outside of sociology. Malcolm Gladwell is a social scientist who actually talks a lot about psychology as well. But he gets into a lot of the social issues with our system. And so it's a really good site and a good podcast. So, I mean, if you have time, I recommend you to listen to. There's 10 episodes here, and then there's 2 more seasons. But for this class, you just got to listen to this 1 episode this week. While you answer that, I hope you have a paper and pencil out. So while you're listening to that podcast, you're going to have to answer these questions. And this will be the Dropbox. And this will walk you through what goes on in the podcast. The last question, I want you to pick an aspect of this podcast and use a sociological imagination to explain it. Then we have an interview with William Barber. I had to have this as an external link because it's through the Daily Show. But it's a good interview, and they get into a discussion on religion. And, this is a subject that a lot of students don't like to really discuss in a classroom setting. I think having a comedian do the interview lightens things up a little bit, although they do focus on serious issues with religion and the responsibility that Barber feels that politicians have that religious leaders have with politics in today's society. And a lot of people say that Dr. Barber discusses the same things that Martin Luther King would have been discussing if he was still around. Towards the end of his career, at the end of his life, Martin Luther King was speaking about the poor people's movement. So he spoke about poverty. He talked about the injustice of war. His social thinking was bigger, so he's seen certain evils in our society and wanted to confront them. And so in religion, there are people who discuss these things. Then we have a discussion of Dr. Hill Collins. And when I know you watched the interview with her and Radha Krishna, with that interview, what you were watching was Radha Krishna have an interview with her idol. So I spoke with Smita Radha Krishna about that, and she said actually that she was a little intimidated speaking to Dr. Hill Collins because Dr. Hill Collins is a great sociological thinker, and so she had to interview her for her class that she does on the Intro to Sociology. So it's a class like this, but Radha Krishna's class actually is broadcast all around the world. So it's done in numerous countries and does international sociology. That's her area of expertise. But when you saw that interview, you saw the nervousness of somebody speaking with one of their idols. I think the term she used that Collins is formidable and a little nerve-wracking to speak with because she's so smart. Well, here you're going to watch her speak at a graduation, and she's going to talk about some of the obstacles she had to come over with regards to becoming who she is. So she relates to a Flag Day speech that she had to deliver as a school as a student, and so with this. You have a discussion forum, which I can get to. Sometimes my view is a little different than what you guys will see. So first, the question you're going to answer is you're going to discuss what she meant with her suggestion that if you care about democracy, you make sure that the doors of opportunity do not close after you've gone through. So you're going to refer back to Collins' speech for this question. You're also going to explain what kind of advice you would have given to Collins about her Flag Day speech and explain why. So this will be a little longer answer, but I think it's a little more fun to discuss this because she reflects back on an incident she had growing up with education, and she asks, what would you have done? And so I'm going to ask that too. Then we have the question with Barber, and he discusses America's challenge with a moral conversation. I want you to relate this back to the study of sociology. And again, you're just looking at him as a thinker. He's a big thinker. Sociology studies big thinkers. And we're not limited to just look in traditional sociology texts. So there are whole classes in sociology of religion. There's one offered here at Black Hills State that gets into this. I'm not having you watch this as any move to try to sway you on religion either way, but I do want you to think about the thoughts that are coming out of him. You know, he writes like a sociologist. He speaks like a sociologist, and many religious leaders from numerous religions do. So they have a very good understanding of the social world, and they discuss it quite often. And then we have the quiz, Chapter 12 quiz. So pretty standard week. If you have any questions, make sure you send me an email, and I'll be glad to answer them. All right, well, have a great week. Thank you.